This is your reality check.
Hi everyone, and welcome to The Reality Check, the weekly Canadian show that explores a wide range of controversies and curiosities using science and critical thinking. Once again, we have a pandemic show for you. Where I live in Ottawa, numbers are worse than they have ever been since the start of the pandemic. And with me at the moment is Adam Gardner.
What's up, Cuboids?
But for the show itself, we have three great segments, as usual. Cristina recorded previously in Toronto with Pat about Mary Kay and multi-level marketing. And Adam has a segment for you about What Did the Fox Say? But he recorded that separately in advance.
That's right.
But first, I'm going to have a segment right now in real time with Adam, but you'll hear it later, about COVID vaccines, risk, and critical thinking. If you're a regular listener of the show, you'll likely understand the importance of critical thinking, as we highlight it in every show, or at least we hope to. Sometimes we do it by demonstration, by how we investigate and report on a topic, other times as a specific topic itself. Despite the following content being familiar to a lot of you, I think it's worth having a cognitive refresh, so to speak. Why? Well, because the default state of our thinking is not balanced and rigorous. It is chaos, where fallacies and biases abound. Well, not so much chaos that you can't make it through the day and achieve basic goals, at least most of us, but definitely whenever we try to understand a complex subject that is large or intangible or relies upon expertise we don't have, we usually run into problems.
Especially when you're throwing in like very large numbers or very small numbers.
Yes. Science. With that preamble out of the way, let's take a high-level look at some of the issues people are having when thinking about COVID vaccines and risk. This will touch on issues of basic numeracy and scope insensitivity, confirmation bias, act omission bias, and general difficulties with certain types of thinking. In Ottawa, when I'm looking at COVID numbers, I usually focus on active cases, as I want a sense of how much risk there is out in the world. Yeah. I understand the numbers lag, and there may be an order of magnitude more cases, but the numbers are useful nonetheless. I use the Ottawa Public Health Dashboard and look every day or every other day, and I usually post an update. So I've been seeing the numbers go up, and sometimes by hundreds at a time. Yeah. The numbers have been rising and rising, so that there are around 3,000 active cases when this was recorded. Wow. This has caused the implementation of another lockdown happening very soon. So today I'm pre-recording several segments with Adam. We're still trying to deliver content, but it's harder during a pandemic for a variety of reasons, also including my chronic pain issues, which has made it harder for me to prepare content. But anyway, a friend wrote me and asked if I had seen the Ottawa numbers. This was just a couple days ago. The things are getting pretty scary out there, is what they said. 4,736 was the total for April 15th. Yep. Modeling is showing doubling daily cases. This is what they wrote. I was like, this is clearly much higher than when I just saw the previous day, so that seemed odd. Yeah. I asked if they were looking at active cases. He said, no, new cases. And if you go to the links, this web link, you can see the highlight and the days of the graph with the numbers recorded, hovering around April 14th. Total new cases is about 4,100. Wow. And it sends me a photo now of the thing. I'm like, well, that's a large number. Like, that seems really high, though. Again, the friend said, I'm not sure looking at your data, but it seems quite off. Our premier, Ford, said, we're going to have more restrictions, masks in public places and more stuff. No curfew, but there's a concern. And I wrote, are you looking at Ottawa or Ontario? Oh. I always look at the Ontario dashboard. And then he wrote, Ontario. Oh, okay. So yeah. 2,900 active cases for Ottawa, somewhat over 3,000 today, I think. And I said, that makes more sense. Yeah. Otherwise, those are dramatically different numbers.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then I linked the Ottawa dashboard, and then he says, I typically, I usually that sometimes, but I go to the Ontario site because it has more updates about the vaccine rollout. Yeah. And so now he's talking about being more cautious about what he's going to do, X, Y, or Z. And that's fine. That's more than fine. What's the point of this story? Well, my friend is decently intelligent, mostly comfortable with numbers, but I think a moment of anxiety led him to be confused. It's not a big issue in general, as it happens to all of us, but there's a big difference between 200 to 300 new cases and 4,700 new cases a day. Yeah. Now that he learned the truth, that the numbers were much less than he thought, I wondered, did he feel better?
They went out in the street and started hugging people, coughing on stuff.
And so I think when he said, and he realized it was Ottawa, maybe there was a moment of, it's not as bad, but I don't think it really impacted him in the same way. Yeah. What an unfortunate trick of our brains. Hey, this thing is bad. Well, actually, it's 1/20th as bad. Oh, thanks. I feel 95% of my concern going away. This does not happen.
No.
This does not happen. Numeracy skills, if you have them, again, it doesn't matter in a way, because this is the scope and sensitivity I mentioned, that you don't process numbers proportional to the impact they should have. Your emotions are all over the place.
I've seen one metric where they mention, I think it was if you live in this city, here's the number of people you would need to interact with before being exposed to someone who's positive, right? And at the time, it was like 160 in Ottawa, which didn't make me feel great. But that's maybe a number that a person can wrap their head around a little more readily, right?
That's true. Exactly. And if you don't know the population of your city, that also doesn't help things.
Yeah, for sure.
So when you're thinking about your own understanding, listeners, of numbers and how you feel to them, how does your brain react? Is it proportional, like good thinking would show? It's very hard to do this continually, especially without intentional cognitive effort. That's why I'm mentioning it now. Yeah. And so part 2 is COVID vaccines and blood clotting. So unless you're under a rock and don't care about the news, you may be aware that there's been concerns about blood clots and certain COVID vaccines, namely AstraZeneca, mainly in Europe, but also recently the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which is undergoing a pause as they look into things. It seems like there is a potential concern regarding blood clots in the brain, cerebral type, for women in the 18 to 49 range. Now, qualifier, I am not a doctor. This is not medical advice or medical opinion. In fact, I will never be a doctor. So I will never offer you medical advice or medical opinion.
Don't give up on your
Exactly.
dreams,
No,
Darren.
growth mindset. Growth mindset. I will be a doctor someday. I will not be a doctor in the foreseeable future. One of the reasons I did that segment back in February on episode 617 with the title Vaccines and the Post Hoc Fallacy is that I was exactly worried about people treating an event occurring after the vaccines being administered to be caused by the vaccine.
Yeah.
Now, it's hard to say if this is actually the case. Again, not a doctor. It seems like there might be a causal pathway between the way the vaccines work and the clotting of blood in the brain in certain women. Okay? That's why it's worth mentioning. The science is not quite in yet. Depending on who you listen to, these numbers fall within the range of chance. So this is what you might expect.
Yeah.
And other people say, no, there's something else here. I will let people more intelligent than I arbitrate that discussion, especially when you have more scientific data. But why does this matter? Well, if you were already so-called vaccine hesitant or vaccine wary, chances are confirmation bias will kick in like, well, look, I knew there were problems. Shouldn't be doing this, of course. And if you are more thinking, well, vaccines are one of the most successful things in human history, like I do, you're like, well, it's not really that big a deal. This is just the biases you have going in before you even get any evidence.
That sounds like me.
Right. So for the recent Johnson & Johnson ones, the odds are about 6 in 7 million. Where did they get that from? Well, there were blood clots in 6 women in about 7 million doses. Wow. Now, again, for the less numerate people, this is pretty handy math. 6 and 7 million, like, okay, so 1 in a million-ish. Yeah. Great, 1 in a million. And then the issue is, what is a 1 in a million risk? Average person, no idea. Me, no idea either. I'd have to look at a chart. Well, then you have to start thinking, well, compared to driving, compared to taking an airplane, compared to leaving the house for anything, compared to winning the lottery, a lightning strike. So all these things. And quite frankly, it's lower than all of those.
I'm not doing many of those these days anyway, but yes.
Yes, exactly. So, well, it's not lower than winning the lottery, depending on the lottery you play, just to put that in perspective. The issue here is, what's the relative risk? Again, are humans good at judging relative risk? And how is that going to work? And I think there's a lot of problems with how people understand the world and their numeracy. Now, I did quickly look up whether the vaccines are more of a threat in terms of blood clotting related to birth control, because this is sort of going around. Birth control causes more blood clotting. But number one, we don't quite know that and have enough data. Number two, yes, there are supposedly a greater amount of blood clots in women, but it's more like this. Well, if you look at 10,000 women over the course of a year, 3 to 9 of them might get blood clots. That's an issue number one. So it's hard to compare someone using something almost every day, or at least, 75% of the time, with a one-off vaccine. Two, the clots are not the same type. So the ones from the vaccine might be more severe. So I'd be wary of making that comparison at this time. Sure. That said, what to do about this? Well, a reasonable person might think, what do I compare it to, right? Yeah. You can't just say, it's 1 in a million risk. Like, well, that's good, bad. Again, compared to what? Well, compared to getting COVID is the reasonable comparison here, for the most part. At least that's the first one out the gate.
Compared to your chances of getting COVID over the period that you're delaying your vaccine to get another
right,
maybe.
Exactly.
But it's hard to crunch those numbers.
Right, and the vaccine would be the one-off, this thing could cause the thing, and it's a one-off.
Yep.
While the risk of COVID, depending on how you live, is an ongoing risk at all times, if you leave the house at all. Yep. And even maybe if you don't. So I think that's just worth keeping in mind. Again, it's hard to think clearly about this. Why medicine is so concerned about it is they typically err heavily on the do no harm principle. And that's, one of the Hippocratic Oath, and that's the basic structure or approach for a lot of medicine, especially with different ethicists chiming in. The issue here is that the do no harm is almost entirely predicated on act-based events.
Yes.
Not the omission of events. So it's not do no harm in the broader sense by the absence of an action leading you to have harm. That's not what they usually think, even though that could be an interpretation which some people use. And why I'm mentioning this is the Act Omission Bias, which I have covered previously on the show. And this relates to the idea that someone is far more responsible, or people care much more about an act that leads to good or bad things than the omission of an act that would lead to an equal or worse good or bad thing. So, again, also for probably insurance purposes and the way our legal system operates, if a doctor administers vaccine which causes harm, they are held responsible. If a doctor chooses not to administer vaccine and more harm is caused, then they are not usually responsible.
Yeah.
If they have some sort of substantiation. Obviously, if a patient requests specific procedure, which is everyone agrees is like life helping, and they don't do it, then they could also be held accountable. But generally speaking, there's this act omission bias thing. And that is also what people are not taking into account when they think about the risk of these vaccines in the broader do no harm principle, let alone the broader societal impact of everyone else not having as many vaccines.
Yeah.
So what to do? Well, one thing you could say is like, why don't you just pause it for women right now? There's so many people that need vaccines that I'm sure you could just shift who gets what for the moment.
Yeah, I'll take an AstraZeneca.
Well, but if there's no men that have had the blood clots so far,
yes,
there could be problems. But again, compared to what, are people allowed to make their own choices? Maybe they can, maybe they can't. It's important to have good science. And this is also why, as someone else pointed out, you can't really rush these things through the FDA approval process, as some suggested they did last year. Like, well, we already designed it. Why do we wait all these months for people checking things out? Like, well, because in the real world, this is what matters. If something has a little bit of harm, it will be seen as problematic. It'll increase vaccine hesitancy, and then it will cause probably greater problems down the road, even if numerically, or with high levels of numeracy, scope sensitivity, and critical thinking, you may not think it should be a problem. If viscerally people end up with the conclusion, I don't think it's safe, that's a problem. That's a public health issue. Yeah. So to offer some sort of summary, it really is, yes, critical thinking is good, but when we look at specific examples of how we might apply it, we see how important it is in the real world and how important it is to be ever vigilant with our own brains and how we understand the world.
Mm-hmm. You know, think better and act better.
Yes, Adam. Yes, cuboids.
So, Cristina, I hear you went down a bit of a rabbit hole around Mary Kay and the pink Cadillacs.
Just a little bit. Now, we here at TRC are big fans of a nonprofit organization called Truth in Advertising, aka TINA. I talked about them in episode 467 when I covered an investigation they did into Gwyneth Paltrow's site, Goop, which, as regular listeners know, I've talked about often on the show. Tina had filed a complaint with 2 California district attorneys at the time, claiming that Paltrow's public platform was making inappropriate health claims and using deceptive marketing tactics.
You know, you just reminded me of something. I reached out to Tina to come on the show for an interview, and they agreed to it. But their director or COO was away at the time, and I was supposed to get back to them about a date.
Well, here's a perfect reason to reach back out to them. Now, their latest target of scrutiny is the cosmetics company Mary Kay. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. Some of you may know that Mary Kay is a multi-level marketing company, in short, MLM. That's why you won't find their products in a retail store. They sell their cosmetics through their multi-level marketing model. I keep saying cosmetics. There might be some beauty stuff, but you get the picture. Wikipedia nicely summarizes the essence of the company, so to speak. So here's their description. Mary Kay distributors, called beauty consultants, can potentially make income by directly selling to people in their community and also receive a commission on wholesale purchases made by people they recruit into the distribution network. Mary Kay distributors must purchase a $100 starter kit to qualify. I think it's a bit more now. Maybe $130 I saw. As a private company, Mary Kay releases few details about the average income of its sellers. Put a pin in that last sentence. Now, according to Direct Selling News, Mary Kay was the 6th largest network marketing company in the world in 2018 with a wholesale volume of $3.25 billion US.
Wow.
Now, Mary Kay is based in Addison, Texas, and its founder was Mary Kay Ash, who passed away in 2001. Now, full disclosure, I'm very familiar with MLMs. I was hip deep in one in my mid-20s, and I've actually thought about relaying my experience on the show at some point down the road. I won't mention the specific company right now, but let's just say it rhymes with Shamway. Now, also, I don't want to come across as disparaging humans who have been involved in an MLM with good intentions, hoping it may better their life or circumstance. In my case, my ex suggested we try it as a way to help supplement income. I hope to have a kid at some point and to stay home and raise them the first couple of years, so it sounded like an attractive proposition. I also didn't have the internet in my pocket in 1995-96 to research the potential cons of what I was getting into. Now, to be clear, people who are recruited into an MLM network are considered independent business owners. They are not employees of the company. Companies may lay out codes of conduct when you sign up to become a distributor, but some distributors can go rogue, lean on deceptive income claims. It happens all the time, among other shady stuff sometimes going on in any particular recruited network. One small example, based on my experience, the MLM network that I was part of led right up the flagpole to a very divisive, conservative evangelical Christian who would turn the stage at business gatherings into a pulpit, which, as I'm sure you have surmised, has nothing to do with schlepping laundry products and vitamins. I digress. Needless to say, MLM companies have to adhere to some rules in order to operate legally. The U.S. Federal Trade Commission has a guide called Business Guidance Concerning Multi-Level Marketing. And the FTC often has to remind companies that they are responsible for claims made by members or representatives, and often need to lay down the law and tell MLMs that their members must cease to make any claims that may be false or misleading. Now, last April, the FTC sent 10 letters warning multi-level marketing companies to, quote, remove and address claims that they or their participants are making about their product's ability to treat or prevent coronavirus disease, or about the earnings people who have recently lost income can make, or both. And that leads us down the highway in a pink Cadillac to Mary Kay HQ. Now, the company is well known for being the only MLM that grants distributors who reach and maintain, by the way, a certain sales level, a shiny pink Cadillac. The popular incentive is called the Mary Kay Pink Cadillac Career Car Program, and it's been around since 1969. Pat, have you ever seen a pink Cadillac driving around?
Not in person, but I think I've seen them on TV.
But not in your real life as you go about your business? No. According to Mary Kay, their products are sold in nearly 40 countries by millions of independent beauty consultants around the world. So you'd think some listeners have seen a pink Cadillac driving around. But if you've never seen one, welcome to the club. Tina reports that according to the most recent data available, there are only around 1,000 Mary Kay pink Cadillacs on the road.
Wow.
Millions of independent beauty consultants. 1,000 Cadillacs. The somber truth is that the average Mary Kay distributor will never get close to becoming eligible for a Cadillac. In fact, the average distributor can pretty much expect to make little or no money, or perhaps even in some cases lose money. Yet you wouldn't get that from a video called Pinky Promises that Tina posted showing various MK distributors making deceptive claims. One distributor said, there are more women making six-figure incomes than any other company. Wow, Pat, more than any other company in the world. I'd love to corroborate that. Another distributor referring to her inspo for getting into Mary Kay said, she made $9,000 a month just from squirting tubes. Other distributors in the video talk about being able to quit their full-time jobs as a result of their Mary Kay income. I heard this all the time when I was part of an MLM too. Others talk about earning the use of their company car within months. One woman said Mary Kay paid everything, insurance, taxes, etc., and she'd enough to make a car payment in 2.5 years. The ongoing message from top-selling distributors to any recruits is that you too can earn a six-figure income like me and obtain financial freedom, quit your day job, and ride around in a pink Cadillac to boot. Sounds too good to be true, right? Well, Tina.org has cataloged 200 deceptive income claims made by Mary Kay alone, their highest earning distributors. And this has happened through various social media accounts and even on the company website. Over 1/3 of those claims mention or show the iconic pink Cadillac, which, as Tina notes, is a deceptive income claim in and of itself. From Tina, quote, "When discussing the earnings potential of its distributors, an MLM and its distributors may not make exclusive use of unusual earnings realized by only a few top distributors without running afoul of the law. Likewise, when marketing an MLM business opportunity as a way to make career-level income, a failure to disclose that the vast majority do not achieve substantial income is deceptive under the law." Now, it doesn't help that MK isn't required to publish U.S. income disclosure statements, so new recruits really can't make informed decisions about what they're getting into. On MK's FAQ, the response to "How much money can I expect to earn as an independent business consultant?" is an inspirational quote from late founder Mary Kay Ash. This is rich, Pat. You're going to love this. "Set your goals and hang on to them until they are a reality. You've got to believe it before you will ever see it. Whatever the mind can perceive and believe, you can achieve."
Oh boy.
I'm not going to lie, I'm getting a little triggered. Now, lucky for us, Canadian law requires that Mary Kay publish a Canadian income disclosure statement. And it pretty much backs up the FTC's statement that most people who join MLMs make little or no money. A typical Mary Kay distributor in Canada does not earn any commissions or bonuses. Here's an excerpt from tina.org. According to a chart that is included in the document, some 83% of distributors earned nothing in annual commissions in 2019, while 15% earned $200 in annual commissions on average that year. Less than 1/2 of 1%, 0.050, earned more than $20,000 in annual commissions on average in 2019.
And that's likely because they're at the top of these pyramids, right? Yeah.
Now, the level where a distributor becomes eligible to quote unquote participate in the CAR program, they only earn an average of $20,000 in annual commissions. And although it may seem like the company gifts these cars to eligible distributors as an incentive, in reality, distributors are on the hook for lease payments if their production slips below a certain level. As Tina points out, you can get an inkling the Pink Cadillac Career Car Program is not what it may seem when you hear top distributors talk about it. Because when they talk about it, they say things like, "I was determined to earn the use of the Cadillac." When it comes to the car program, Mary Kay's 2020 advance brochure states that MK, quote, "will pay all or part of the monthly leasing costs or cash compensation for 8 calendar quarters." So that's 2 years, depending upon the net adjusted unit wholesale production from the prior quarter. What does all that mean? If a distributor's wholesale production, not the same as earned commissions, falls below $50,000 in the previous quarter, the distributor is expected to chip in to cover the car. And if the distributor's production falls below $32,000, Mary Kay will pay nada, zilcho.
In a quarter, $50,000 in a quarter.
In the previous quarter.
Wow.
Basically, Pat, Mary Kay leases a car, grants use of the car to distributors who sign a program agreement. And under that agreement, they assume all obligations of the lease. Now, Mary Kay is a member of the Direct Selling Association, DSA, an industry trade group whose code of ethics prohibits members from making misleading claims. They must be busy. And as Tina rightly points out, by refusing to disclose the average earnings of a distributor, Mary Kay is putting their distributors in a situation where they violate the law when promoting atypical earnings claims. From Tina. In refusing to disclose typical earnings, Mary Kay is clearly signaling that it would rather risk it and distributors violating the law than coming clean with the truth. The company's decision to hide how much a typical Mary Kay distributor earns or doesn't earn in the U.S. ensures that its U.S. distributors will almost certainly violate the law when they promote their business opportunity using examples of success. This is because they will not be able to counter the atypical earnings claims with the reality of how much the typical distributor earns. And there you have it. You can find more of Tina's great coverage on MLMs and deceptive income claims at the link in the show notes.
Thanks for that, Cristina. That's really interesting. And I'll echo that Tina is doing really good work. I get their newsletter. I think it's about once a month. And it's very, very good. I encourage people to maybe sign up for
Definitely.
it. Yeah. And with that, we'll turn things over to Adam. I hope everyone out there is staying safe and healthy. And we will talk to you soon.
Stay classy, not smartassy, and please stay safe, everyone.
What's up, cuboids? A couple of weeks ago, on a local Facebook group I'm part of, someone mentioned hearing the distinct sound of foxes in the neighborhood. I thought we didn't know what foxes sounded like. Like many, I was instantly enthralled with the 2013 viral video The Fox, or What Does the Fox Say? This humorous, silly music video asks the question of what sound foxes make and leaves it unanswered. The song continued to be popular with children for years. I recall once visiting the Ontario Science Museum when I entered this godforsaken children's play area, which was just this chaotic mess of children running around and screaming. And the loudspeaker in the room was playing this song, What Does the Fox Say? The song currently has over 1 billion views on YouTube, so it continues to be popular. So, what does the fox say? So as I mentioned, the song doesn't actually answer this question. Otherwise, 1 billion people perhaps would know it. So it makes many silly speculations. Now, I won't include clips of the song. I feel like we'll get internet arrested or something for saying that. But I'll just kind of say what some of those sounds are. In the song, the fox goes ding, 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 ding. Pow, 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 pow. Hotty, 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 ho. Yoof, 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 yoof. And then it later comes back with more random sounds. Ya cha 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 chow, fa ka 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 cow, ahi 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 hi, and there's a sort of howl like a ooh. So at the end of the song, if you watch the music video, the actual fox comes out of the woods, shows up, and it starts doing a bit of a song, a sort of a rap. It's kind of a boobity bop kind of thing. So the suggestion by the song is that the sound that the fox makes is sort of this like bebop kind of sound, which is not really what foxes do. So upon hearing this song once, twice, dozens and dozens more times over the past 8 years, I kind of assumed foxes maybe didn't make a sound at all, and that's why people didn't know what sound they make. And it looks like I'm wrong on this. Even though this isn't one of the standard sounds that a child learns in school, they still do have a sound. They still do make a sound. So what is it? Now, it's not hard to find once you know that there's an answer to look for. A quick internet search found a YouTube video with various fox sounds. There are a few videos with different fox sounds. Some people recorded that themselves. So different sounds are made by foxes to suit different scenarios. This is the case for a lot of other animals as well. So we'll include some short clips here. So when they're alarmed, they bark, and that's a sound that's a bit like a dog. And then there's the Vixen Scream, which sounds like a mix between like a cougar's growl and an eagle. And this is thought to be a mating call, though I guess they're not sure. Then there's something called geckering. It's an odd sound that they use when fighting or playing. It's something like a hyena makes, and that's actually one that sounds a bit like one of the sounds that are in the song. Then there's the fox cry, which sounds, again, like something a bird would make. And finally, their howl sounds a bit like something that a cat or an owl might make. Most of these don't sound like the ones in the song. Maybe the yoof yoof sound from the song sounds like geckering. The howl vaguely sounds like a few of these, right? But a lot of the ones from the song are kind of jokes. They're just like random sounds. Ultimately, what does the fox say isn't just one sound, so there's no simple answer to this. And this isn't really that odd. So we say cats meow, but in reality, they meow, they hiss, they purr, and they make this weird sound when they're angry or fighting. It's hard to describe exactly what that is. Similarly, we say the dogs bark, but dogs also howl, they pant, they growl, they whimper, they make all sorts of sounds. Just like people make all sorts of different sounds, though we have, obviously, language and words and other things. This also makes me think of another interesting aspect of animal sounds. The word which describes the sound they make often varies by region and by language.
So we can see a bit of this in the song. So Ylvis, who perform the song, are a Norwegian comedy duo. They're from Norway and host a Norwegian talk show. Some of the animal sounds which they mention match those I'm familiar with, but not all of them. Some of them just seem bizarre to me. So dog goes woof, cow goes meow. That's easy. These are obvious ones. So take a moment to look at the difference here. An onomatopoeia is a word which sounds like what it's describing. So a cat's meow, it sounds like the word. It sounds like meow. He makes the sound meow when we call it a meow. But a dog doesn't woof, a dog barks. A bark sounds like woof. So that's not an onomatopoeia. For the most part in the song, they say the sound that it makes, the onomatopoeia, not the name of the act which the animal does. So a bird goes tweet and a mouse goes squeaks. These are ones that we're familiar with as well. A cow goes moo, for sure. Then they say frog goes croak. Well, to me, a frog croaks, but a frog goes ribbit, which doesn't really resemble the sound a frog makes, but that's sort of what we say. But digging into this a bit, the common frog native to Europe makes a sound which is closer to croak, which explains its use in the song, while ribbit is used for frogs in North America. So this is not only regional based on language and culture, it's also based on the animal making a different sound in that area. Next, they say elephant goes toot. So that's not really a sound I've put a word to, but that does seem about right. And they say ducks say quack. Absolutely, that's what people say in English. And then they say fish goes blub. And I'd never heard a fish going blub until 2013 when I first heard this song. And then they say the seal goes ow, ow, ow. I'd never heard that one either. A seal barks like a dog barks. But the song doesn't say bark. It says woof, or they say ow, ow. They say the sound. They don't say the name. So let's forget about the name of the sound, but instead focus on the sound that the animal makes. Now, I don't speak a ton of languages, but I do speak French. In French, cats still meow, but dogs don't say woof, they say waff. So when I was in high school, in a French media class, I made a dog say woof in a speech bubble in a comic, and my teacher docked me grades on that, actually corrected me. This is incorrect. So I was somehow trying to make some sort of point that the sound didn't matter, that it wasn't something that should be tied to a language, but I've kind of softened on that idea since then. So it wasn't that I was ignorant that a dog should say waff. I was just stubborn about it, I guess. Now, a duck is an odd one. In English, ducks go quack, quack, but in French, they go quank, quank, quank. Neither of these is that close to the sort of quack, quack, quack sound that a duck makes, but it's somewhere in between. In Japan, cats say nyan or nya, and that's sort of an N sound rather than the M of a meow. And an actual cat's meow can either sound like there's an N or an M or somewhere in between in there. Now, what I think is interesting is that if you're watching a cartoon cat or something like that, an English show will usually have the cat make a meow sound with an M, but then a Japanese anime show, for example, might have it do like a meow with an N or a meow, right? So the person performing the cat sound is likely influenced by the sound of the spelling of that sound that they're brought up with, even though they're both trying to do the same sound. Now, this doesn't apply, of course, when you're using an actual animal sound, because it'll just be whatever that animal actually sounds like. Or if you hire Frank Welker, because he's a genius and he's perfect at doing animal sounds. Now, unlike frogs, the cats don't actually sound any different in different countries, and there are breeds of cats and small differences, but these are just differences in the interpretation that culture took for that sound. Now, I don't speak Norwegian, but a quick search did find a page, Animal Sounds in Norwegian, though the spelling is different and sometimes uses letters I don't recognize. Many of them, such as those in the song, are close to what they say. Now, one of them is that the fish goes blob, and that sounds a lot like what they say in the song. So that makes sense, and it's likely why the artist chose to include that sound. It was one that was common to their native language. Of course, a fish goes blob to them. To me, fish don't really make much of a sound. Finally, I thought about other animals which aren't really known to make a specific sound. So the fox isn't really unusual in that respect, even though there's a song about it. There's lots of animals we don't know what sound they make. So we know of the common sounds for many animals, but a lot of them don't make sounds that we learn about like when we're in school, not sounds that I teach my kids to do or something like that when we play the animal sounds game. So what does a giraffe say? We could make a song about that. If it weren't for the South Park movie, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, I wouldn't know what sound a giraffe actually makes. They make this really weird sound, but it doesn't have a simple onomatopoeia, so it's not something we learn as toddlers. There are also animals that don't make much of a sound at all. I had a rabbit for over a decade. He thumped occasionally, but he never made much of a sound with his mouth. So if I went really close, I could kind of hear something. But I was able to find some clips of rabbits making noises on YouTube. I didn't recognize those as anything my rabbit's creme brulee or vanilla ice did. I guess some people have noisier rabbits than I did. Maybe I was lucky in that respect. So what does the fox say? They say a lot of things, like many animals do. It's not quite as mysterious as the hit song might have us believe. In English, as well as in some other languages, the sound an animal makes can have a specific name, or the sound they make can have a word which represents it, known as an onomatopoeia. Those sounds can vary from language to language, even by location, even if they're fundamentally based on the same animal sound. Peace out, cuboids.
For show notes or to discuss this episode, visit our Facebook page and website at trcpodcast.com. For general inquiries or to send a topic or parody suggestion, email info@trcpodcast.com. Help support the show by leaving a review on iTunes and liking us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at TRC_podcast.
Oh, thanks.
There's some construction.
There's a dude cutting planks of wood on his balcony. I can see him. He's right there. He's got like a buzzsaw.
Oh,
and he's
snap. Well, that'll be that will be a funny outtake. Let me see if I can close a second door. Wonder what could be causing it.
I was watching him. I was like, I haven't heard this guy yet. It's any second now.
What's he doing? He's measuring.
This is what we do for you, listeners. In summation, I think critical thinking is good. No. Wait, let's try it again.